It's Saturday, the markets are closed, but we're here on Capital Market to give you a summary of all the activities that took place during the week. Good evening. Welcome to Capital Market here on Channels Television. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Now, let's do this journey together. Give you a wrap-up, first of all, of activities at the NGX all through the week. And we can tell you that after recording a fluctuating performance in 5 sessions in this week, the domestic bourse managed to close the final trading week of July positive, closed in the green territory despite pressure from profit-taking activities during the week. Eventually, the NGX All-Share Index rose very marginal there, 0.1% week on week, to close at 65,056.39 points. And this is thanks to last-minute bargain hunting in energy sector bellwether Seplat Energy, which has released its second quarter and half-year result to the market. Perhaps that helped. It helped to counter the losses from components of other key sectors while adding to the earlier gains to the posted by the oil and gas counter. However, performance on the activity chart was negative in contrast to last week's, as the total volume and value of shares traded were down by 31.7% and 62% respectively. The shares of Skyway Aviation tops a list of 39 gainers with more than 43% increase. Cadbury Nigeria led 53 other losers. Talking about the losers chart now, 53 other losers with over 26% drop on its share price, while the trio of FBN Holdings, Japan Gold, and UBA top the most active top trades for the week, traded stock for the week. That's the NGX now. Still staying with the NGX, we did see a whole lot of results being released all through the week for the quarter ended June the 30th, 2023. I will give you highlights, operating key performance indicators, total consumer base. Talking about AIRTEL now, is a total consumer base grew by 8.8% to 143.1 million as penetration of mobile data and mobile money services continued to rise, driving a 22% increase in data customers to 56.8 million and a 24.3% increase in mobile money customers to 34.3 million. Constant currency ARPU growth of 11.1 was largely driven by increased usage across voice, data, and mobile money activities around there. Looking at the revenue, it grew by 2.2% in the reported currency of $528 million and by 23% in constant currency. The differential in growth rate is primarily contributed by 22.7% average devaluation of the Naira. You know that has been a major factor in this declaration of revenue and profits for this quarter ended, or the half year of 2023. Now let's go to a related company, MTN Nigeria. See how MTN did in the first half of 2023. We see that mobile subscribers increased by 4% to 77.1 million, added 1.5 million subscribers in the first half of 2023. Active data users also increased 11.5% to 41 million. Active mobile money, the Momo PSB wallet increased. Talking about financial inclusion there. And looking at the numbers that you have there, service revenue increased by 21.6% to 1.2 trillion naira. Earnings before interest rates, tax, depreciation, and amortization, the EBITDA, that's the factor there, grew by 20.6% to 614.5 billion naira. And also, EBITDA margin declined 0.6% to 53%. Profit before tax declined by 25.4% to 200.4 billion naira, and that's up 17.6% to 331.8, adjusted for the unrealized foreign exchange losses. Once again, that factor is there. Earnings per share was down 29.3% to 6.33 naira. And then adjusted for that forex also, we see that it was up 13.4% to 10.66 naira adjusted for unrealized forex loss. An interim dividend maintained at 5 naira 60 kobo per share from the previous year. We go to another sector now, and that's the industrial goods sector. Dangote Cement is what we have there, just reporting the group. We see for the 6 months ended June the 30th, 2023. We see that revenue for 2023 was 950.8 billion, and that's up from 808.4 billion in the previous year. Gross profit was also up 567.7 billion from 485. And then we see profit before tax was at 239.9 billion, and that is lower than what they had last year, which was 264.9 billion. Profit for the period was 178.6 billion. And for 2022, it was 100.72. So we'll see another drop there. Sorry, an increase there from 2022 from 178.6 to 172 there. And earnings per share this year is just a little bit higher than 2022. It's at 10 naira 39 kobo from 10 naira 10 kobo, which was the number for 2022. To the financial sector now, and we can tell you Wema Bank Group for that, also for the period ended June the 30th, 2023. Operating income was at 44.5 billion. From 32.2 billion. So we see an increase there for operating income. Obviously, operations have really gone up. Profit for the year for 2023, 10.5 billion from 5.5, and earnings per share, a total of it is 163.2 billion from 82 billion. And then we have from the oil and gas sector, SEPLAT, operating performance in the year we see was 6 million. 2023 was solid according to them, and they achieved a 2% increase in production, helped by reduced losses on Western assets, which they say are benefiting from the availability of Amupe Escravos pipeline and increased output from OML 40. So they've been able to shore up some of that. But we know that the oil and gas sector has been having some good times with the removal of subsidy. We've seen prices go up in the global space also. We've also seen that, and that has been to kind of an advantage for them. Now, let's look at the numbers you have on the screen there. Revenue, 278.3 billion naira from 219.2 billion naira. Gross profit, also 140.6 from 114, another increase there. Operating profit, however, dropped at 60.2 for 2023 from 102 billion in 2022, and profit before tax 43.5 billion in 2023, down from 87.3 billion in 2022. Well, the final one we have for today, we obviously could not collate all the results that have been released, is from Nestle Nigeria. Nestle Nigeria unaudited financial statement for 6 months ended June the 30th. Revenue was 261.8 billion from 222. I guess people will still have to eat. Loss before income was a drop, was in the red, 69 billion from 43. There was a gain last year, a profit of 43.7 billion, but this year Nestle had a loss of 69 billion. Profit for the period was also in the negative there, 49.9 billion. Last year there was a profit of 27.9 billion, and declared dividend was 28.9 billion from 20.2 billion. Well, obviously, these are not the only results that have been released by the companies. It's an earnings season, not just in Nigeria, but also in other countries. So we expect to get more and more results. You know, just before we delve into our conversation, let's tell you some of the major stories for the week. I think one of the biggest one was the Central Bank's Monetary Policy Committee that voted to raise its benchmark interest rate for the 8th consecutive time since May 2022. 2022, this time by 25 basis points. Interest rate, as the MPR, is now at 18.75 in its continued efforts to cool inflation. At the end of the MPC's two-day rates decision meeting, the first under President Tinubu, the CBN's acting governor, Mr. Folashadun Shonubi, announced a narrowing of the asymmetric corridor. I haven't touched that in a while, around the MPR to plus 100 minus 300 basis points from plus 100 minus 700 basis points. And the acting CBN governor explained that the decision was taken after considerations by the members of the MPC to help narrow the negative real rates of returns, as well as encourage foreign investments.
The option to continue to hike the policy rate a bit moderately also presented a strong alternative. This is premised on the expected liquidity injections into the economy from the recent policy developments and the likely impact on inflation. The committee remained cautious in arriving at a policy decision as members noted the need to continue to support investment, which will ultimately lead to the recovery of output growth. The balance of these arguments thus leaned in favor of a moderate rate hike to sustain efforts at anchoring inflation expectation, narrow the and improve investor confidence. The MPC thus resolved by majority to raise the monetary policy rate. 6 members voted to raise the monetary policy rate, 4 by 25 basis points, 2 by 50 basis points. 5 members voted to hold the monetary policy rate constant. All members voted to narrow the asymmetric corridor from plus 100 to minus 700 basis points at a new level of plus 100 and minus 300 basis points around the MPR. In summary, the MPR voted to raise the policy rate by 25 basis points from 18.5 to 18.75%, adjust the asymmetric corridor to plus 100 minus 300 basis points around the MPR, retain the CRR at 32.5%.
So having 5 members vote to hold, I think, is a message. Perhaps the next meeting in September would end with a hold. Who knows? And hopefully, even though we've been told, according to World Bank and some other bodies have said that we should expect that inflation will only begin to cool by next year, first quarter of next year. But anyway, let's see what the MPC will do in September. And first of all, let's see how, investors and the markets and economic variables will react to the 0.25 points increase in interest rates in the MPR, and of course the asymmetric. But other things that happened during the week, total foreign transactions carried out by investors at the Nigerian Exchange Limited, that's the NGX, grew to 145.08 billion naira in the first 6 months of this year, 2023. According to the latest domestic and foreign portfolio investments reports in Nigeria's equity trading for June, which was released by the NGX, total transactions at the nation's bourse increased by 25.96% from 322.92 billion naira recorded in May to 406.75 billion naira last month, that's June. Well, the report also mentions that institutional investors outperformed retail investors by 32%, while the performance of total transactions within the month of June increased by 159.87% year-on-year when compared to 156.52 billion naira recorded in June 2022. And analysts have said, while this is worth celebrating, it is also important to note that this is hot money, it's portfolio investment, and Nigeria needs to look for a way to make it a more sustainable, make it foreign direct investment, which is a more sustainable investment in the country that will make impact, create employment, create jobs, and will not easily flee at whatever, if anything goes wrong. Let's take a break now. When we come back, environmental, social, and governance framework in the capital market, is it existing? Are investors conscious of it? or is the market conscious of it? We'll have that conversation after the break here in Capital Market. To stay with us. You're welcome back. It's Capital Markets on Channels Television, where we're looking at activities for the week that took place at the market. And now we want to have a conversation on environmental, social, and governance. That's ESG. Everybody's saying ESG. Well, we know it as a framework that's used to assess organizations' practices and performance on various sustainability and ethical issues. And it's also supposed to provide a way to measure business risks and opportunity in those areas. That's when you talk about sustainable development. Well, to have this conversation with us, of course, we'll be focusing on the capital market. ESG in the capital market is Mr. Emmanuel Etaderi. He's the Executive Secretary, Financial Center for Sustainability at SEC, that's Securities and Exchange Commission. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Etaderi. Good evening. Okay, I think you may have to unmute, Mr. Etaderi. I cannot hear you, even though I see your lips moving. Can you hear me? I can't hear you, Mr. Etaderi. All right. Well, I guess we would have to give Mr. Etaderi some time to unmute. His audio was tested even before we started, so I wonder what went wrong, before now. And while waiting for him, we're talking about the issues around can you hear me now, Mr. Etaderi?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. I can hear you now also. So we're talking ESG in the capital markets, and I'm just wondering, how real is it to a capital market participant, to traders and all of that, the issue of ESG, or is it just a word or a term that we just drop and then nobody's really working with it?
Thank you very much. Very good question. ESG as a concept is actually one of the top burner issues globally. And when it comes to Nigeria, I would say currently they are organized in partnership with the Securities and Exchange Commission, the Financial Center for Sustainability Lagos, which I head as the Executive Secretary, and Environmental and Social Sustainability, a firm based in Senegal, worked with the SEC to organize the workshop recently on Thursday, 27th of July, focused on ESG and the future of investments in the capital market. And through the Nigeria Sustainable Finance Principles, which the SEC also issued about a couple of years ago, there are guidelines and conditions guiding practitioners in the capital market on how to pay attention to ESG, report on ESG, practice ESG. So it's not just a buzzword, it's not something we're just dropping. It is the way the entire world is going. It is the future of investments in the entire world.
Yeah, but as a center, what are you doing to create more awareness? Because I'm not sure that a lot of investors would check and say, oh, I'm going to invest in a company that is compliance with, sustainable development goals and guidelines. I'm not sure a lot of Nigerian investors do that.
So one of the things we're doing is to organize sensitization sessions, awareness creation sessions, workshops, having bilateral conversations with key stakeholders, and also trying to imbibe this culture even right from the academia, the schools level. So you have business schools like the Lagos Business School, establishing sustainability departments and appointing top minds to run those departments so that the subject can also be taught to aspiring business moguls, practitioners of business, and also even in secondary schools, in universities, and in primary schools, we're also attempting to create awareness, that knowledge, knowledge level, and actually try to change the mindset of people. But it's a gradual process. It's not a silver bullet. It can't happen overnight. But steps are being taken. And working in partnership with the United Nations Development Program based in Geneva, which is our parent company, the FC4, the setting up of the Nigerian chapter of the financial centers for sustainability. There are 39 of such chapters around the world preaching ESG, teaching ESG, practicing ESG. And we have partnered with SEC because SEC is the chief regulator of the capital market. And unless you have regulators speaking to regulated institutions to get them to comply, you may not have that sort of compliance. And when they comply and they create, for example, ESG focused funds, like the way you have ethical funds that do not allow people to invest in things that are non ethical, that's the way you're going to see ESG focused funds coming up. So investors can invest directly in companies that are ethical, that companies that are practicing environmental, social, and governance principles, companies that are practicing sustainability on a yearly basis, do an analysis of the market to analyze the penetration of sustainable finance and ESG practices in Nigeria, and I report on that through an assessment program to our head office in Geneva. Also, the other 38 chapters of the Financial Center for Sustainability report to the headquarters. So we are taking steps, and we are also ensuring that we carry all relevant stakeholders, government, academia, business, the scientific community, and all even innovators through our, for example, in FC4S, we have our annual SDG FinTech Hackathon, which inspires young Nigerians between 18 and 35 to come up with smart, innovative ideas on how we can solve the challenge of the SDGs in Nigeria and how we can build more consciousness, more awareness of ESGs. So that's another way we are refocusing people's attention on ESG.
Okay, but what are the incentives? Why should I care as an investor?
Excellent question. So you look at the meaning of ESG and then you understand why you should care. E is for environmental, S is for social, G is for governance. I start from governance. As an investor, if you don't care about the standards of governance in the company you invest in a short while, that company is going to go to ground. It's going to fail. We all remember what happened at Enron in the US. The managers of the companies, the directors, the board of directors must be held accountable. The key component of ESG that concerns governance is accountability and responsibility. So they must be accountable, they must be responsible, the decisions they take must be smart, but also must be guided by the need to build sustainability. They must ensure they are profitable. But why is being profitable? They will ensure they don't do things that will harm the environment in which they're operating. So for example, I've spoken about G. Let's go to S. S talked about social. Social speaks to how you treat your staff, how you deal with the community you're operating in. You can't be an oil and gas company. You're taking from the environment, making money, and then you don't put anything back. You're degrading the environment. You must find a way to restore the health of the environment and also make people who exist in that environment to benefit the profits that you're in through initiatives that you introduce. Some companies, for example, sponsor young men to universities overseas as part of their giving back. You see companies doing CSR activities because they are mindful of the social of their business. And you also talk about how you treat, how you talk about gender issues. Goal 5 of the UN 2030 goals says that we must ensure gender equality and gender empowerment. So the constitution of your board as a company, you must find a way to include the gender component and to care about people who are vulnerable and who are minorities and who are often overlooked. Let's go to E. E speaks about the environment. I'll tell you this. In environment, the challenges we face today comes from how we make and how we consume. We have a linear culture. We take, make, and dispose. It harms the environment. We need to take, make, and reuse that we practice economic principles. And those principles will ensure that we have to conserve the resources of the earth because we're having challenges in the environment today because of anthropogenic activities coming from how human beings deplete resources of the earth, how they've degraded the environment, we dispose the used products, the outcome of the productive investments. So there's need to pay attention to that because the temperatures of the world are increasing today. The ozone layer is depleted. Cities like Lagos, Miami, Mumbai, and 8 others are exposed to encroachment of sea level to the extent that in 30, 40 years, these cities could sink. Lagos is just 0.8 meters above the sea level. This is not a joke. This is serious. It's not a do-good initiative. It is to stay alive and be sustainable and preserve the earth and preserve your own life and preserve the future of your children. So the way we build too, we have to be responsible. You don't build on floodplains and then you lead to what you see is building collapses because all the drainages have been blocked. When there's rain and there's flood, the water can go back to the sea because you blocked all the drainages. You built on the floodplains, and
All right.
you're causing damage to the environment and leading to losses of both human life and property. Last year in the country, 31 states were affected by flooding. We can't joke with things to take responsible action to ensure that the way we dispose our waste is we do it in a way mindful of the impact on the environment. And the
All
beauty
right.
of this is that what is
All right.
actually a problem
All
can
right.
become profitable to us if we invest
All right.
in some circular economy.
All right, Mr. Chadere, you certainly have a lot of messages to preach, and a lot too, because I mean, even here in Lagos, Lagos State, the message of don't throw things from your car has been preached for years, and a lot of residents in Lagos still do it. You know, people, you know, you see them driving with posh-looking cars, and you know, it's still so. It's a huge message. I mean, if you want to think about how long it took for CSR to also catch up with the corporates, then you know that you have your job cut out for you. But thank you so much. Unfortunately, we can't take more than this on this episode of the program. Mr. Emmanuel Tadere, the Executive Secretary, Financial Center for Sustainability, for this. And I know that you have a bigger job to do behind the scenes, and we wish you all the best as you do that.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me.
All right, so that's it. Mr. Tadere has that heavy message for all of us. We need to be responsible to preserve our environment for sustainable development, sustainable living, also for the children and the generations to come. And that's where we draw the curtains on capital market. What a way to end the show. Food for thought, I guess. And some of these things should change our attitude and our behavior on a daily basis. Thank you so much for being a part of the program today. I do hope that you have something at the back of your mind that you're going to practice from today onwards. I'm Edie John McCoy. Have a great weekend. I'll see you on Monday, bright and early, God's grace, for Business Morning, where we will have current and relevant business conversations. Have a great weekend.